This is an excerpt from the Wait Are These Guys Friends podcast. Okay, so we are going to pivot to a few weeks ago, we did an award show for the movie Hot Rod, which is a movie Randy had chosen that I'd never seen.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, let's talk about the movie and we'll give awards at the end for different moments and bits and things that we liked about it and didn't like about it. In turn, Randy was like, all right, now you get to choose the movie. And I didn't want to torture him, at least out of the gate for the first time with one of these. I genuinely chose a movie that I knew he hadn't seen that I think just kicks a lot of ass. I think it's a really fun movie. I love it a lot. We are going to transition over to the award show stage, but we'll have a lot of pre-release notes and trivia and production notes before we get to our awards. You Randy? You Randy?
I am Randy, yeah.
Me, Mike. Get your tux ready. It's an SNL like quick change to the next
All
set.
right.
I hope you're ready.
It's the edge of tomorrow awards. We'll live and die and repeat, then live and die and repeat, then live and die and repeat. And oh no, I'm stuck. How do I get out of this? I just want this song to end so we can do the edge of tomorrow awards. Please help me. I am stuck in the song.
Oof.
I'm just going to live and die and repeat. Please, I have a family. Help me, Mike and Randy.
Catch it.
Mike and Randy.
Wait,
You are the host for this award show. Please help me escape this hell. Mike and Randy.
What's going on here?
Well, you've completed your quick change into a tux, and you look fantastic.
Yeah, well.
Was there something on with the song? I wasn't listening. I was preparing for the show.
That just it kept going, huh?
What are you talking about? It just seemed like a normal song to me. But
Repeats
anyway.
And like and repeats and like and repeat. It's going to be in my head now the rest of the day, so thank you so much for that.
Well, that is the point of this movie. So this is the Edge of Tomorrow Awards. Edge of Tomorrow is a Tom Cruise film, an Emily Blunt film. Basically, it's what if that sequence where Bill Murray tries to kill himself in Groundhog Day became an entire movie?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start off by saying I've never been a huge Tom Cruise fan. I've seen very, very few of his movies in the last 30 years. Like, I think I can count them on one hand easily, but I love this movie. And I think it's because of the futility. It's nice seeing him lose, get kicked around, get beat up for most of the movie. We can talk about the lead up, the film, and all that, but what did you think now that we're on the stage in our tuxes talking about this film?
I'm going to address that very quickly, is that I think part of it is in a lot of his movies, he seems to be out of the gate, amazing action star, can do everything and defeat 100 people at once just because. So with the premise of this movie, it like Groundhog Day, right? Bill Murray becomes essentially a concert pianist, can play jazz piano like flawlessly, can do all this other stuff. It's feasible with this. If there are hundreds of loops that Tom Cruise has to go through, eventually he's going to retain the knowledge and instincts that he's developing, then, right, that makes sense. So, it's a lot more feasible than the one who's just like, oh, Tom Cruise can run fast. Tom Cruise can get the jump on everybody just because he's Tom Cruise, as opposed to he's working with someone to actually train and learn all these. I think it's a lot more, I don't know, it feels right versus it not like, oh God, we're in another one of those movies. Jumping off that, I really enjoyed it. I think it is it took me a minute. I think the first 10, 15 minutes, I was not prepared for it to be just as madcap as it was. So I had to kind of straighten myself out to be like, what's going on? I think that's kind of the point, is that we're in this insane environment where the aliens, the mimics are there and have taken over, and everyone is kind of reacting in real time. They have this idea what they're going to do, but the mimics are ahead of them, and
they drop you in. It's not the aliens are invading. What do we do? The aliens have invaded. They've basically won. We need to try to fight them back. And Tom Cruise plays a PR representative from the U.S. who they want to put on the front lines as like a reporter. He says no, and the general says, well, if you're not going to do that, and they basically knock him out and throw him on the front lines as a grunt. But he was never a grunt. He's not a soldier. And that's how things get going. For people who don't know, the movie is very straightforward for about 25 minutes. There's a war. He gets dropped on the base. He is not ready to fight. He gets just destroyed by this big alien, bigger than all the other ones on the battlefield, and its blood just drains into him as he dies because he manages to kill it. This winds up giving him an ability to reset the day every time he dies. It's not goes to sleep. I think he could technically live a whole life out forever. It's when he dies, the day gets reset, because that was actually the ability of this alien. It's how they've been winning the war.
I saw it as basically the starting point is always the same, but his ending point is just completely dependent on when his life ends.
I actually had wanted to tell you, I didn't want to pepper thoughts of the movie or infer the movie too much. I wanted you to enjoy the movie clean as it would be. But there was a part of me that wanted to tell you, and I'm glad I didn't, hey man, don't like be on your phone for the first 20 minutes. Don't make this a background watch. Don't be like hanging out. Like, watch this open, because it will make the rest play a lot better. Not to say that you would have been like hanging out half watching. I think you were watching to watch for this, but you never know how you can get distracted. I didn't say it, but I wanted to be like, dial in for a while.
And I think it happens so rapid fire, as once it's established that that's going to happen with him, where it's going to be reset, it is, I mean, pardon the pun, beaten to death, quite literally, like to death and to death and to death and to death. And which I think the same way this, again, it's easy to see the Groundhog Day influence. I mean, but it takes a lot of what works narratively from Groundhog Day in this environment, in this application, and it does it really well. Like, it's to the point where it hits you over the head continually, just be like, well, in this ambush of a beach scene, there's 1,000 ways to die. So you avoid 999, there's another one coming, so and it shows that in it's just rapid succession. I think what helps too is that you only need to see the reset, or you can see parts of the reset, right? You don't have to go through the whole thing, because that would get ungodly repetitive, but it's a nice little fast forward in the narrative structure. And the way they do it is with the drill sergeant saying, "On your feet, maggot," and that becomes the Sonny and Cher, right? Like that's "I got you, babe." So like it "On your feet, maggot" becomes the, okay, we're starting back over here. But once you're there, you can skip to the next part you want to see, because he's gonna, or if you show just very simple parts of him in the plane as he's about to drop down, or you can show all these little parts, and it doesn't have to be a completely like drawn out narrative part to see where he gets to, because that's kind of what you're doing anyway. You're like, oh, okay, we've started over again. All right, you know what? I don't want to see all this other stuff. Get to the good part.
You're right. You pretty much see the entire first time, the entire second time, which is the twist to hammer it home. And after that, it just starts really taking off. And obviously, we mentioned Groundhog Day. That is not a coincidence. This is based off a science fiction light novel from Japan by Hiroshi Sakurasaka. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. With illustrations by Yoshitashi Abe. And it's called All You Need Is Kill, which is what an amazing name for a book. And the thing is that he had the idea, the author, by being in like an online chat room, and he was on forums looking at video game players where comments were about how restarting the game after the playable character's death allowed for trial and error improvement. And the writer was starting to conceive of a story where a hero wound up being played over and over. And he actually said prior to writing that he consulted other time loop-based fiction, specifically naming Groundhog Day in the lead up to this. Which, hey, if you're going to do it, probably go with the best option of this.
Best execution of the idea, yeah, for sure.
As I said, just before we continue on, since I already brought up the graphic novel, the light novel, as it were, it was published in Japan in 2004, so it had a solid decade of development. All You Need Is Kill followed a soldier named Kaiji Kiriyawa, who, after dying in a battle with extraterrestrials, just like this, is caught in a time loop. However, Rita Vertasky is the same name in the book. She is an American Special Forces soldier, and a lot of that is directly adapted. There's also a manga adaptation, which is very popular, and this had a lot of lead-up and different connected series that eventually obviously caught Hollywood's eye, where they Americanized it, as they so often do. And the character became Bill Cage. Even the name Cage, even though it became his actual name, William Cage, in the adaptation with Tom Cruise, in the books, his nickname became Killer Cage. And that's how, because he would trap people and goo and all this. So they were, by all accounts, it was faithful enough. You know, they took a lot of aspects. The name of the character in the comics, Rita Vertasky, her full nickname is the Full Metal Bitch. They say it a lot. You catch this in the movie where it's written once on the bus as there's a poster of her because she's become military propaganda, which we'll get into a little more of the plot talking about her. But you notice, to try to keep this PG-13, they never say her full nickname. Right. They always address her. Oh, that's the Full Metal. Hey, guy. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, I think, and as she's passed, like, it's early in the movie, right? Like, she's passing another person. She goes, and the guy goes, "Hey, you're the Full Metal." I think he gets the B out, and she shoves him down.
Exactly.
Did you know that's Emily Blunt's brother, by the way?
I did not know that.
I found out in the trivia. Yeah.
Wow, I missed that entirely. That's fantastic.
The fun one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she wanted multiple takes of that. Let me shove my brother down again.
I need 20 takes. No, I said I need 20 takes. Oh, all right. Well, that's lovely. So Emily Blunt does play Rita Vertasky. In this movie, she is, I didn't want to say a sidekick. I almost said that. That's terrible. She is full co-star, kind of a romantic interest, but it's really more of a guiding force, a trainer for Tom Cruise's William Cage. And she had this power and lost it. The one battle that the humans have won, which it eventually comes out that they were allowed to win to build confidence, she actually was the guiding force in that, because she had the power before getting a blood transfusion, which caused her to lose the power because the alien's blood was no longer in her. And she becomes the one person who can believe Tom Cruise. She has a proper sidekick who helps to guide them through this battle. And most of this movie, frankly, is a training montage. This is 85% training montage, but it works.
And just understood that I think one of my favorite parts is more towards the end, where you're so used to everything being something that Tom Cruise has seen before or is prepared for, and they get to the point where Brendan Gleeson's character, the general, gives him the thing that can destroy the Omega, and they turn around, and so Emily Blunt, Rita, goes, "Well, now what?" He's like, "Never got this far before." Like, and so I'm like, I'm glad that they waited that long to get to that kind of point, because they could have used that joke and it would have been fun really at any point, but it worked really well there, where it's, the stakes are going to be the highest.
There's only one similar moment, and it's in the second or third reset. The first time he gets to Rita, and Cage gets to Rita, and she takes him to her scientist friend who had gotten demoted for trying to say she was telling the truth, and he basically is put in the murder pool. There's one very, very early moment where he's like, "Well, how many fingers am I holding up?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Oh, so this is the first time we've met," which that was so early on, I think, was part of the hammer home, and they let it sit for so long that it does, crescend really nice into that moment. So my thought process is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the production of the film, a little bit about how it was set up, and then we'll get to the awards, and then I want to talk a bit about how it was received and the fallout from it being released. How does that work for you?
Let's do it.
Fantastic. So the director, Doug Liman, really has quite a pedigree.
Yeah.
He did Swingers and Go and Born Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then Edge of Tomorrow. But I wanted to mention, I feel like he's in director jail, because really since this movie, which we'll talk about some fallout, he's really done a lot of TV and lower level schlock, which is crazy, because this is a great movie and he's done some really good work. But I found an article from Grantland, which Grantland, not always my favorite. There's a lot of opinion. It was a very opinionated thing. The title of the article is "Just How Difficult Was Edge of Tomorrow Director Doug Liman?" And there was a quote in that article that's like, "He has no patience for studio notes. I make movies for me and for posterity. I'm more scared of history than I am of the studio." Which, to be fair, I love that. And I think it shows in this film, the care.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting to hear that too, just knowing working on Swingers, right? Like I'm sure he went back and forth with Favreau on some of that
Which,
stuff.
and
So
to
yeah,
be fair, I forgot he had directed Swingers. I feel like his part in Swingers has been forgotten and lost to time.
yeah.
I, honest to God, until I started researching this, thought Favreau wrote and directed that movie and started
So
it.
did I. And maybe it's just because he's directed after the fact that we just sort of
Yes,
assumed. But
he
yeah,
became a prolific director after, but that's another one of Doug Liman doing this amazing film that is really good and kind of being lost to time. It's
yeah.
maddening to me. That said, he did have a great quote about this related to what we talked about at the beginning. Why did he want to do this film? Because it showed a role that Tom Cruise had not done yet, someone being very bad at what they do. And I was like, yeah, people needed to see this. They wanted to see this. This is a great hook for this. But leading up to this, I also asked you to watch the trailer for this film.
Yep.
Now that you've seen the movie, which is frankly very funny, very action, like it is for someone who dies thousands of times, it's kind of lighthearted in points.
It 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 doesn't get there, but it moves on the edge or the precipice of Edgar Wright territory at times. Like right, like
Yes, well said.
there is. It doesn't go that far, but
Yeah.
it flirts with it, and I loved that. I thought that was a great way to tell that story. Watching the trailer that you sent me, which was the 2.5 minute, I'm sure,
Like the
cinematic
official
trailer that
launch
came
trailer.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I would have been much less jazzed to watch this movie than I was you just kind of cold telling me. I was really kind of put off by the trailer. I'm like, I don't want to see this, because it's the swelling music,
It's
the
very
action
dramatic,
packed,
very
like
heavy-handed.
I'm like, I've seen this crap a billion times. I don't care about seeing this. Like, and it's still an interesting premise that might have pulled me in, but I'm so glad that I didn't see that beforehand because I think it would have soured me before I got it. And I think the movie would have pulled me in anyway, but I'm much more glad I went in cold because I enjoyed it a lot more.
And I specifically asked you to please not watch the trailer until
Yeah.
after you had watched the film. And we'll get into it after the awards. That trailer and a lot of the marketing really did hurt this movie in a big way.
Because I think it really could have pulled in, it would have pulled in people anyway, just from a big Tom Cruise action blockbuster. But if they made the trailer a little more tongue in cheek, I think it would have been really, like, it could have pulled in a lot of people. And then I think the word of mouth would have kept going. I mean, it made a ton of money anyway, but like, I think it would have been even more well regarded based off of that.
Absolutely. Talking a little bit more about some of the production of the film before we get to the awards, because I think this can really help to sell the film and what we're talking about why we would award certain things. Did you look at any of the pre-production notes for like some of the special effects or the suits? If not, I got a ton.
I didn't. No, I just know they cost a lot. But
Think about the MCU, and you see the behind the scenes video now of Spider-Man, Iron Man. They don't do suits anymore.
Yep.
That first Iron Man in 2008, you saw the suit. It was a real suit. Now you see behind the scenes footage, and they're all wearing the motion capture suits and the dots. And listen, they look great, right? But
Yep.
in essence, those movies are a head in a cartoon. Are they
Yep.
good-looking cartoons? Yes. But Tom Cruise, in the same way that he wants to do his own stunts, that he tries to make everything real on the Mission Impossible
Yeah.
movies, he provided a lot of pre-shoot creative input to the team, and he insisted that these exosuits be real, not they could wear them. And there were obviously a few CGI flourishes, but they were wearing these fucking exosuits in the movie, these soldiers, to make them, viable on the battlefield against aliens. It's not cold turkey going in as a, World War II with a bayonet. They're wearing big, giant exosuits with weapons that look like they kick a lot of ass, frankly.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise said that he proposed the armor ought to register with the same emotional impact often captured in war photography, a bleak toughness that also speaks to the humanity of the individuals venturing out into the battlefield. And yeah, the exosuits are critical to make that look. I do say as a joke to the film, like, apparently we don't want to do, maybe they can survive it, but it seems like they would be destroyed by missiles or a nuke or certain things. That I'm shocked they didn't do some of those earlier, but maybe you don't want to just start nuking Europe. I can be fair with that, but it seems like at a certain point you'd be like, all right, it's time. But fine, let's keep sending out the soldiers.
Or who knows what kind of giant government contract is going into these, and they're trying to reap the benefits of that. I don't know, but
yeah, that's fair. It did make me think of, again, I insist, I beg you, please watch the Fallout series. But there's a moment where they talk about pre-Fallout, when they're talking about the war before the world has gone to shit. There is a minor plot point of there had been some developmental suits similar to this that malfunctioned on Walter Goggins' character, and the guy's like, yeah, but we saved a lot of money by outsourcing those to so-and-so. And I was like, ooh, there it is. Effects designer, I think production designer Pierre Bohanna on this movie worked with Tom Cruise, and they made two-dimensional concept art, three-dimensional foam mock-ups that led to the creation of an aluminum prototype that eventually became the big honking metal suits, to the point that Emily Blunt said in a podcast interview, which I don't know how I feel about this, that after putting on the metal suit, she started crying because it was so heavy. It weighed 85 pounds, that she didn't think she could perform action scenes in it for 5 months. When Tom Cruise told her, come on, stop being a pussy, okay?
Yeah.
Emily Blunt said she laughed at that and got it together to get the job done. But all I could think was, what if she hadn't taken it that way?
Right.
Like, I don't say that. Maybe it's, listen, I didn't hear his inflection. He could have very clearly been joking. But I'm pretty sure if somebody had said to me, I'd been like, well, fuck off, buddy.
Yeah. How about you don't have your lead actress in this movie then?
Yeah, you can go to fucking hell.
How about that, tough guy? So
yeah. Over the course of 5 months, the production team handcrafted more than 100 of these exosuits, each of which consisted of 320 custom-made components, 150 pieces of additional procured and manufactured parts, nuts, bolts, etc. And each suit featured multiple built-in microphones, which were seamlessly incorporated into the suit's design to help the sound team. In addition to the hidden mics, another was concealed in that big box in front of the suit that just looks like armor. This was a lavalier microphone with a furry windscreen behind a mesh screen. And I'm just like, wow, the care put into these suits, you see it on screen. This movie is real and visceral in addition to everything else we talked about. The action pops, and that's why it kicks so much ass. It does not feel like a CGI battle.
The
yes, are the alien CGI?
Sure,
sure, but it feels so real and you get it. But that's the last kind of production note I have. Anything else we'll talk about afterwards. Are you ready to talk some awards?
Sure.
All right. Let's start off with, we've talked about how visceral it is and how much it hits and all these resets and timelines. But let's start with the worst death. and I've been going back and forth in my mind. And you tell me what you decided. Does worst death mean narratively, or does worst death mean, oh no, I wouldn't want that to happen? And I kind of am going back and forth. I have a pick for both. What do you have?
I guess I didn't really. I'd have to think more about the latter. I did it a little bit more as the former. So
narratively,
narratively,
which
yeah.
I also have as well. So I'd love to do that.
Counterproductive is my way of saying worst death. It doesn't really help or solve anything. And so I'll go first. And my worst death is when he pushes Kimmel out of the way and then gets smashed by the giant the ship, because Kimmel is not worth much of anything. He's got his gear on without pants. Like, come on, guy. Like, just I eventually, like, Cage comes to that realization. It's like, you know what? Yeah, just let it happen.
He was the first ground death in the battle, and the first few times he's reset, the very first thing Cage is trying to do is save him, because it was the first thing he saw. And eventually it's just like, okay, I gotta fuck this. I gotta try to do something else. You're out. You're out. Good luck.
Because that's my worst death, because it literally just is like, there's no point to it. Like, you're saving a guy who's probably gonna die in about 3 seconds anyway. So like, you saving him is not aiding the cause. The other ones at least had some sort of, and I guess it's a brief little comedic thing to be like, oh, you got out, but then
and
we
it does
reset.
help to establish the rules, because it's the first person, but it's also pointless. Mine narratively, I also focus on the narrative, but mine goes a little deeper because I would want to talk about this eventually.
Yep.
Narratively, to me, the worst death is the last one, but because of the reset. I got to tell you, if I love this movie, But if there's one thing that they didn't explain that I've never understood, I have never understood this. And I
Yeah.
remember watching this movie for the first time. I rewound it to rewatch The Last Death or a bit before a couple of times because they hammer home. We've talked about this. They hammer home the reset. It's always wake up, maggot, and the day starts
Yep.
over.
Yep.
This time, for reasons I do not understand,
Right.
he gets bathed in the mimic blood again at the
Yep.
last death. You think it's going to be his real final death, or at least they sell it as that because he had lost the blood. He can't reset, but he sacrifices himself to end the war, blow up the big alien main base. It's going to take care of everything. But when that happens, he still gets bathed in the mimic blood. But for reasons I have never understood, and I don't think they've ever explained, the reset now is 2 days ago to the very first scene in the film, before he gets downgraded, before he becomes a grunt, when he's still the PR guy going to see the general. And I hated that. It's the one thing in this movie I hate, and the problem is it's the ending, because I don't get it. Why?
This is a stretch. Is it one singular alpha that is controlling the reset?
Because it is in the main base is maybe what you're thinking? But why that
Well,
point? Why not to where the
No,
aliens first
I was
invaded?
thinking
a
it's
year,
alpha specific. That's more how I was thinking. So the alpha that he kills in the first one is a day reset kind of thing. And so the resets are specific to the alpha. That I'm giving way too much credit to the
I
narrative.
get what you're saying, but what
Yep.
I don't get is why would that alpha be 2 days ago? You're saying that alpha is a 2-day alpha reset, and there's one that's maybe a week?
Yeah.
Okay, but
It's flimsy, but it's more of an explanation than we get.
I would actually buy that, but the problem is they never explain
Right.
it. And for that reason, it's the worst death because it actually robbed the power of that last death. Being the last death, the one that's going to lead to the end of the war, the one that's
Yeah.
going to build up so much to mean so much. But instead of focusing on the death or what happened, I'm sitting there at the end of this movie that I've enjoyed a lot, confused. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And it hurts. The one thing that hurts this amazing film is the end.
Yeah. Because they need a way out.
Yeah, and I get that, but I love what you said. Is it flimsy? Sure, but is it just enough?
Yeah.
Also, yes.
I had to think about it to come up with it. It wasn't like something like it was very obvious. Oh, well, that's a 2-day alpha. Got it.
Of course. Any other thoughts on bad, worst deaths? Any runner-ups? Something that you almost had before we move on?
No, that was pretty much, as we went through the categories, that was a runaway for me. I knew I was going to pick that one.
Okay. All right. In that case, we will move on to, as this obviously is a reset, and you see a lot of the same moments over and over and over, we're going to transition to the best recurring bit. Now, I will start, and my gut reaction,
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say this. Am I a pervert? Because the quick and easy answer is the introduction to Emily Blunt doing that yoga pose where she bends up and just, my
In the trailer.
God. And they hit it over and over. And if you look up this movie online, like best recurring bits and edit tomorrow, it's every pervert just going, Emily Blunt's yoga pose in her introduction. It's in the first time. It's in the end. It's in thing. And I'm just like, I feel like maybe I shouldn't choose that answer, but oh my God, I'm choosing that answer. Oh my God, it was amazing.
Trying to be as objective as possible on this or whatever and not sound too pervy. Emily Blunt I know. Emily Blunt is a very attractive actress, obviously. This is as good as she looks incredible in this movie. So it's just like this is a good look for her. So, I mean, and they leaned into that, obviously, with the yoga pose and all the other stuff. So, it's worth noting for sure. Because I said she can look different in different types of stuff, but in this movie, she looks great.
When I think of Emily Blunt, I so often, and I can't even place, I know she's done these movies, but I think of her as almost a period piece actress for some reason.
Yeah.
Like old-timey,
Quiet
like
Place,
Victorian.
I think of that, right?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Or I think of her, honestly, in the Jason Segel Muppet movie, but...
What the hell is she in, Jason?
She's like the assistant that won't let
Oh
Miss
my
Piggy in or
God,
whatever.
you're absolutely right.
I don't know why I thought of that, but
No, you're fair. She's Miss Piggy's assistant. I completely
she's kind of just a
forgot about
bitchy
that.
British assistant, yeah.
Which she's doing The Devil Wears Prada, which is probably where most people would think about that. But for some reason, I don't know. Maybe I think of her as posh, is what I should say. I think of her as posh, and this is not posh. She is a soldier.
Yeah.
But regarding that scene, I'm picking it. Fuck it. I can't help it. It shows the training.
I can't wait for this screen
work
grab.
she put into it. Oh my God. Oh, I feel so gross, but I can't help it. It's the one thing I think of every time. It's like,
again, they put it in the trailer. Like
but to that, the training she did, I will hit one post note. They came back for reshoots, which is not a thing in the movie. So many movies do reshoots, pickups, little things that they need to do. But she didn't do her own stunts for the pickups or the reshoots. And Tom Cruise was like, you did them all. And Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. He's like, why the fuck aren't you doing your own stunts? He probably called her a pussy again.
Oh, boy.
But Tom Cruise became the third person outside of her husband and her doctor to find out she was pregnant. She had gotten pregnant either at the end of Edge of Tomorrow or between filming and the reshoots. And for that reason, she did not do her own stunts. There was a stunt person that picked up her reshoot stunts.
Gotcha.
Which you can't tell. She's doing probably 85% of her own stunts in this movie.
Yeah.
And it shows. And her training obviously shows. But there you go. There's a fun little fact about my creepy recurring moment of how well-toned and trained she is in that yoga pose, dear God. Anyway, what was your best recurring moment?
I think mine is the fact that any injury that requires longer than like 5 minutes to heal means death.
Yes.
I love that.
Often by the hand of Rita Vertasky to William Cage, there is just those quick cuts of shoot.
No, my foot's fine. Bang. Like I just saw that. I really enjoyed that. We're just to the very now the broken back, obviously, that's one thing. But just like little things where it's like I sprained my he didn't do this, but it's as if to be like I sprained my ankle up.
Recovery time's too long. You're done. You gotta reset.
That is my favorite one because it's really funny.
Which is great because they've trained you to know that's coming. When he's lost the power, the next time you see Rita is her bursting into his hotel
right.
Her bursting into his hospital with a gun. He's like, oh, hang on, I lost power. Lost the power. It's like, they've trained you that.
Just reset
she's like,
this,
I don't got
will be
time
all
for
right.
this.
And
it's so fun.
I'm a big fan. I really enjoyed that little sequence. It was a lot of fun.
Any other thoughts? Any other recurring bits that you loved? I realize that's your best, but anything else you want to hit?
The Bill Paxton just continued speech and this was a thing that I was thinking about that we assign quote unquote catchphrases in this movie, right? Like "Get up, maggot," or what's he talk about battle?
Is the Great Redeemer.
Fiery Crucible. Yeah, he uses that over and over too. And we think about that as something that's repeated. Tom Cruise can say it. Cage says it because he knows it's coming. But it's weird how it is in the overall sense of the movie, almost a catchphrase for these people, but they're only saying it once.
Yep.
Which is like random. So, but his little speech, I think Farrell is the general or Paxton's character. It's fun to hear his little speech every time.
I'm going to hit a quick early transition because he's my vote for best side character.
Okay.
I loved Bill Paxton as Master Sergeant Farrell. He steals every
He's
scene.
on my list.
He's amazing. It's also, we don't have to get into this necessarily, but Bill Paxton, I believe, passed away in 2017. And to me, this movie came out in 2014, and it's honestly, looking at his IMDb, the last Bill Paxton role of any major note. But it's another Bill Paxton role where he's in a supporting role, a small role, but he owns every moment he's on screen. He's completely memorable. You enjoy everything he's doing, and he just oozes fun and charisma, even though he's being a hard ass and a dick to everybody around him.
Yeah.
And it's just magnificent what he does with this piece. He is the first one, aside from maybe Get Up Maggot guy, who's only one line every time, his repeats are the ones that kind of help ease you into this world. And his speech is what is the first major repeat because he had this big dramatic monologue and now it's being undercut. And I just love it.
The cool part about his monologue too is that once you hear it once or twice, you can kind of tune it out the next few times and see and you're more focused on what Cage is doing to try and figure out how he's going to get out of it or maneuver around. And you're along with what he's doing because he's tuning it out because he knows exactly what he's saying.
Absolutely. And for that reason, I don't think maybe Brendan Gleeson as the general, who maybe it's just because I like hearing his Irish accent.
Yeah,
And
he's
he
not
doesn't
great in
do a
this.
ton,
I'll be
but
honest.
no, he's not. But
He
I don't
doesn't have a
know.
lot to work with too.
No,
That's
he doesn't. But I think he's really great in that opening scene. And he comes back a couple of
that's fair.
times.
Yeah.
But if you're really talking the best side character, to me, it's Bill Paxton. But I'm going to take a stab and say that you have a different pick.
Yeah, Paxton was my runner-up. I was very close to picking him. I picked Noah Hunt, not Noah Hunter. Noah Carter is the doctor's name. His actual the actor's name is actually Noah too. But
I will get you there. I will get you there. Noah Taylor?
Taylor, thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Who, if anyone is a Game of Thrones fan, was in House Bolton in Game of Thrones, and he was the guy that, no, spoiler alert, I guess, but cut off Jaime Lannister's hand. He was a bad dude, yeah. But in this movie,
Googling him, I see it now, but I don't think I would have recognized him if I'd rewatched the show.
I didn't, from watching the movie, I didn't make the association. I just kind of did a little more deep dive. Like, why do I know this guy?
So I have two thoughts for you. One, would you like to get into why you think he works in the movie and why he's your favorite side character? Or this is very much a clickbait article because Screen Rant is nothing but clickbait articles.
Yeah.
But would you like the top 10 reasons why Locke makes no sense on Game of Thrones?
Maybe that's for another day. So,
okay, great. Maybe we'll talk Game of Thrones sometime. But tell me more about why you actually like this character and why you think why is he your pick for best side character?
I just really enjoy the not disheveled, but just like person that doesn't trust anything anymore because they were so devoted to their craft, to the science, to trying to find ways to help the nation, the military industry, to fight this, and then get kind of shoved aside because they took all his information and then just said, yeah, all right, thanks, but no thanks, or if it wasn't exactly what they wanted to hear or couldn't help address their narrative, then he just needs to be pushed away. But I kind of like that underground kind of guy who has it's a lot of exposition, but I think it's helpful exposition and told from a fairly charismatic guy. So I enjoyed those parts of it. They didn't just feel like an exposition dump to me.
Every sci-fi movie, and because regardless of what this is, even though it's an amazing kick-ass action movie bordering on action comedy, at its heart, this is still a sci-fi movie. Sure. Aliens and whatnot. Every sci-fi movie needs a technobabble guy who can just say the bullshit. And it's always a credit to the actor and to some degree the writing, obviously, because you got to write the babble. It's all about the performance. How convincingly can you deliver this technobabble without losing the audience, without having people tune out? And you're right, this guy does a fantastic job with technobabble.
And he speaks to the basics of it. Kind of at the very end, like there's a nice little back and forth but this needs to be, injected directly into an alpha. And she's like, we don't need one. Like there is this kind of scientific thought process to what he's saying, is that like this has to be applied this exact way, and the way that Cage and Rita are kind of like working around the rules to make this work. So
absolutely. By the way, when I wanted to make sure I had the term right because I think of it from different sci-fi, and I did make sure. I was like, yeah, technobabble. I found a website from sci-fiideas.com that is a technobabble generator. And I would just like to, with all my acting power, which is minimal.
Oh boy.
Deliver a few of these lines for you. Now, you tell me if I am giving it the same gravitas or believability, some of these lines that could have maybe gotten me best side character. Are you ready?
Okay. Yep.
I'm detecting a quantum surge in the torsional ion transporter beams. We need to install the dorsal solar cells now. Did I lose you? What about, we need to increase the power of the Teflon bubble shift scope?
That was better.
Okay, we'll try one more. You're doing something, right? You're working on a device. Don't forget to increase power to the damaged electroplasma fragmentor. I said that wrong. It should have been Fragmentor, but it was spelled with an O, and I went or. That was a terrible performance. Fragmentor. Do not forget to increase power to the Fragmentor. Fragmentor. Oh, so I got to read. There's a neutrino surge in the tungsten vacuum replicator. Okay, I'm done.
There we go.
That one was terrible, but I really liked the phrasing of that one. Any other thoughts on side characters before we get to the best death?
Yeah, I think that's probably it. The J Squad is kind of all their own there. Like there wasn't one of them that stuck out to me more than another. So I couldn't really give it to one. They're fun as a collective, but
yeah. I mean, if anything, maybe you do give it to, I already forgot his name, ass out fat guy soldiering, because he is maybe the most memorable of them.
Or not Kimmel. Kimmel.
No, he was Kimmel. He was ass out soldier fat guy. For that reason, he probably.
I wrote when I did my notes, and I was like, when Kibble gets hurt, but they because they call him Kibble once, or like when Tom Cruise is trying to figure out who he is. Kibble? No.
Yeah. So, finally, moving on. Before we will have a few post notes and box office breakdown. What, in your mind, was the best death in this movie? And again, I debate is best way to have died or the best death on screen. I'm not sure, but I think I picked a pick for both.
So, and this is so subjective here in terms of like what best is, because it was mine might be.
I could have said favorite maybe, but I don't know.
Or like bluntest for me, but like just to showcase early on that, there's really a lot of different ways you can die that aren't necessarily related to combat. And so when he's down doing the push-ups and tries to roll over and gets hit by the truck, that's my best death.
That's my pick too.
Is that really?
Yes, it is.
Like you don't even see it. That's the thing. But you just hear thud, and you're like,
and then it's the cut back to Bill Paxton, which is maybe what secured me. Is so often the death happens, you're immediately in the next timeline, right?
Yeah.
This death happens. This is when he's trying to meet Rita for the first time. He hasn't met her yet, and he needs to get out of the loop of basic training he's being forced into to go find her. And he's getting further and further every time. And he tries to do that classic action movie trope where he rolls under a truck to grab the frame and drive off. But he just gets flattened. And instead of cutting away like they always do to the next life, you get one moment of Bill Paxton as the sergeant going, what the hell were you thinking? And I'm like, all of this works. It's a great laugh. And if you're just talking about the best way to die, it's maybe the quickest death that didn't involve burning alive or being skewered or shot in the head.
Yeah.
And it works all around. What about yourself? I know you had a bit, but
no, that's really it. Like it introduces early that these deaths can be comedic. They don't always have to be horrifying or, I think what I like a lot about this, there is not a ton of visceral violence in this, right? Like it's not, I mean, there's some, but it's not grotesque and over the top. You see the effects when his face sort of melts away, but like that just is like special effects to me. There's not one where his chest is ripped open or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, and so I appreciate that because I'm a little squeamish with super gory stuff. So I like the fact that it's more just kind of straightforward, which is like, you're dead, you die.
That's a really good point and obviously they got the PG-13 rating, so they can go hard.
That's true. Very true.
But this isn't a slasher film. This isn't a horror film. In that regard, I'd want to see what I want to see. Here, he's dead, and it's more the method than seeing him suffer. And,
correct.
We're not monsters. We don't want to see him sit there and be like, well, I'm going to die for 5 minutes.
It also is establishing the point that, like, some of this you do need to think through. I get that you're flying by the seat of your pants, but, and I mean, the benefit is you get to learn from it. So,
so with that, I think that's the end of our awards. And I want to dial back and talk a little bit about the release of this film. How did this film do? The legacy and possible future of this as a franchise. So we're going to move on back and we're going to talk. This movie got released. And it sounds really good on the offset, right? If I were to not tell you anything else I'm about to tell you, This had a full budget of $178 million in 2014, and it grossed $370.5 million. That's almost $200 million gross.
Mm-hmm.
On the offset, that's a hit. It made money. It sounds great. This movie was considered a disappointment financially. Critics liked it. People who have seen it liked it, but you have to remember the advertising was terrible. It was considered a flop, especially domestically. And compared to what Tom Cruise did mostly around it, minus one example I'll get to, it didn't deliver the way. I think this had a hype in the industry, not with the public, of this is going to fucking deliver. And when it not give them the Avengers money, the Mission Impossible money, they were like, well, this didn't go well.
Right.
Which is, I have a lot of stuff, but did you do any post notes, title, release, box office? You got anything you want to hit or look, or else I'll just go hard. It may be a minute before you talk again.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
No, I think having seen that cinematic trailer, that's not that surprising. I think this is a fail from the marketing teams to push this forward, because people did go see it. People were interested when they saw it. But this could have been marketed so much better.
Oh my goodness, yes. So let's start with the title. The director, Doug Liman, always wanted the official title to be Live, Die, Repeat, which does give it more of an indication of what it's going to be about. He shot it. I think you can see, slapper slates. It was called Live, Die, and Repeat. He wanted to call it Live, Die, and Repeat. But as studios often do, they start to interject. And they decided to release it as Edge of Tomorrow, which really doesn't make sense. And it gives it that overly dramatic sci-fi feel that the trailers did. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So in an attempt to recoup this, when it was put on DVD, the tagline had become Live, Die, Repeat. It was Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. They flip-flopped that for the DVD. And I have a copy. If you see it, Live, Die, Repeat is massive on the post-release, marketing covers, whatever, while Edge of Tomorrow is much smaller. On the side, if you were put it on a shelf, it's Live, Die, Repeat, and tiny, tiny, tiny little Edge of Tomorrow on the spine. The rental company Redbox, when released, has this listed under the letter L in its kiosks for Live, Die, Repeat. And all online retailers currently giving you the movie have the digital streaming version listed as Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. They recognized how they had misbranded this movie, and they tried to fix it, and I think it did okay with DVD sales. And obviously it has found, for a movie that made $200 million, it is, I think, a cult film at this point, because when you find it, you tend to like it. And it's building momentum to the point where people they have asked about a sequel. Even as late as November of last year, they were giving status updates. Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise saying, we're working on a script. The script's being written. If we find the right idea, we'll do it. And also the perception that it didn't do well continued to perpetrate like, well, we don't need to bother with this anymore. And I want to talk a little bit about that regarding the box office around it. So this movie came out in 2014. The next year, in 2015, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation came out on a budget of $150 million, which is $28 million less. And it had a gross of $688.9 million. That's what they wanted this movie to be. Even when it didn't blow the doors down on DVD, even though it's recouped more. When it didn't blow the doors down, that's what they were expecting. That's why they tried to shuffle this movie off to the dustbin. At the time, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, the last Mission Impossible movie, which came out in 2011, had grossed $694.7 million off a budget of $145 million. Jack Reacher in 2012, on a budget of only $60 million, grossed $218 million. Tom Cruise had a track record of holy fucking balls, we are going to clean up. But he had a middle period of 2013 and 2014, pre the next Mission Impossible, which is probably why you think about when we did Sylvester Stallone. He had 2 really bad years, then he went back to Rambo and he went back to Rocky and just cleaned up.
Yep.
Oblivion in 2013
Yeah.
only grossed $167 million difference. $120 million budget, $287.9 million gross. Edge of Tomorrow only had a difference of $192 million. It's hilarious to talk about these movies grossing millions of dollars. Can I tell you what I think the difference is? Aside
What's
from
that?
the fact that Jack Reacher like tripled his budget, what came out in 2012 that truly changed the industry forever? I think for the worse, as much as I love it.
The Avengers?
Yes.
Yep.
You had to make $1 billion all of a sudden to be considered a real action hit. Suddenly, you're only making $200 million. You fucked us over. And
Yeah.
Oblivion, which I haven't seen, but I don't think the results were great. The reviews were great. And Edge of Tomorrow, which we've spent a whole episode talking about it. You gross almost 200. You properly make a profit of almost $200 million. And you're like, no. No. And I just, fuck, man. Fuck.
In the age when Transformers makes 1.1 bill a year, right? Like, it's...
Which, my goodness, it disappoints me. It makes me sad because this movie deserves so much more.
It's crazy looking at the list. Like, domestically, this is the 31st highest grossing movie of 2014.
It only debuted at number 3 the week it came out.
Yeah.
Which really is just
I'm just trying to look at, and most of them are noted kind of franchisey things or big time animated ones. But I mean, I'm trying to find one that is kind of.
Are you talking the top
ridiculous.
10 for the whole year?
Just I'm looking at I got the numbers up, and this is just domestic box office. So
Yeah,
Guardians was the most that year at 333.
There you go.
Just domestically, but I mean, if you go down here, like The Fault in Our Stars, that was
that was actually number 1 the week it came out. This and the second week of Maleficent beat Edge of Tomorrow. The second week of Days of Future Past was right under Edge of Tomorrow.
I mean, Interstellar did better than this movie.
It's wild, man. It's
Ride Along.
There's a lot of movies that let me rephrase this. I like this movie so much more than a lot of movies that did better than it.
Yes.
So we'll wrap this up. I feel like I focus so much on the positive aside from the ending. I worry I didn't give you a chance to really analyze what worked and didn't work for you about this movie. I'd love to give you the final thoughts about, you had never seen this. I gave you an assignment to watch. Really talk to me about what you're getting out of this. Would you watch it again? Would you never watch it again? What did you think of it overall?
I would watch it again. I think maybe to show somebody else it. I think that's how I watch it. I don't know if I'd watch it soon again, but if it was on or something. I think it was a really nice watch for what it was. I enjoyed the alien component of it. I feel like they were good villains. It seemed not plausible, but like the way that they could attack, the way that they could attack very quickly without warning. There was less jump scare to this type of thing. It's just like, here they come. Like, I like that. I like that part of it. It just the evil is what you know in front of you. There were parts where it gets, it's just action sceney, where it gets a little bit over the top, just because, but it's establishing that Cage has done it a million times before, so he knows what's coming. Following that sometimes is tough, but they don't linger on that too much. It's not like a 3-minute sequence where they're trying to just get through the battlefield. Like, at least sometimes those get too drawn out and you're just like, okay, this is just sensory overload. Like, you're just doing this to show off for visual effects. Most of the time they stuck to what was working, and I felt like they always tried to advance the story before being too repetitive or going to the well too many times for things that worked. It's a nice narrative structure. Unique but not unique, if that's cool, like a good way to put it. It just a great way to implement this idea into this genre, and a lot of fun. I mean, no surprise that it didn't. Lionel also did Looper and what was the other one?
You said, who did you say?
Sorry, what's the director's name?
Doug Liman.
Liman, yeah, okay, sorry, I said Liman.
I thought you said
Um,
something else. I
I
apologize.
no, I didn't have it in front of me, and I'm like, oh god, did I say his name wrong? But
I honestly thought you said. I thought you were saying maybe the director who did Last Jedi, and then for a half second
oh
you said Rainn Wilson. I was like, I gotta
yes,
ask him what he said.
Dwight Schrute, yes. So
Yes,
no, I this is a movie that looking for something to watch that was enjoyable. This I think was a great recommendation. Something I didn't really know much about, and I really enjoyed it because I can be hit or miss with action blockbusters because I think I kind of tune out. It's I need some sort of narrative thing. I'm a big fan of capers, and whether it's deep state or someone's behind something and trying to double cross somebody else. I like that type of stuff. But if the bridges are just going to be, oh God, this guy's firing at me. Okay, I'm going to fire back at him. Okay, oh, we got to dodge to this guy. We're going to run into this building. This building's going to blow up and go over here. I can only take that for so long before I really start to check out. So I'm glad that this didn't implement that. It kept the action in, but it didn't just linger and hang and rely on the action to carry the whole thing.
absolutely agreed. I'm glad you like it, and that's actually part of why I recommended it because, as I said at the top, I don't really like Tom Cruise movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the Fast and the Furious. I don't like Transformers. I don't like traditional action-focused franchises. And I don't count the MCU in that. There's more going on in
Sure.
the MCU generally. And so this to me was such an anomaly when I found it the first time that I was just like, fuck me, I love this. And I
Mm-hmm.
was partially probably because I was so surprised by it. It does a lot in your mind to tie it to something special.
I think, yeah, you have the reference points in other genres to pull from, and I think that's what makes it fun, is that you're kind of connecting the dots to say, oh, who's Ned Ryerson in Edge of Tomorrow, you know, you have all those different type of things that you can say, oh, this is a fun kind of one for one.
And if you are interested, this more to, I guess, the listener than to you, because I know this probably isn't your speed. But if you would like the full-on horror movie version of this, which is also hilarious, it's a horror comedy, Happy Death Day, which is just fantastic. Came out in 2017, has a sequel that puts yet another twist on travel and becomes like a multiversal thing. But Happy Death Day is the horror movie Groundhog Day. And then, obviously, if you just love the comedy version, to the point where they're like, no, we're in a Groundhog Day, watch Palm Springs on
Yep.
Hulu with Andy Samberg. It puts another twist on the comedy version of this. I think I now realize I like a good time loop story when done right. If you can find a new twist on a time loop, I'm all in, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what other genres that could really apply to, but
You've done action, you've done horror, you've done comedy. I guess you could try to do the hardline drama version, but how do you do the hardline drama version? There would eventually have to be comedy. There's going to
right.
be funny moments in something that's just repeated ad
It's kind of a
nauseum.
depressing movie. Yeah.
Right, unless you're a miserable person, you're going to find, even if you're laughing out of desperation, there's going to be a laugh in there somewhere.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there's a way to like lean in even further, make it more screwball madcap comedy. But I don't know if it's a way that it's seen for, if it's multiple people, right? Like that are afflicted with this, but then intersect. If there's a way to make that work, that might be kind of fun.
No, I absolutely agree.
Although I guess that's sort of Palm Springs, right? Because then she ended up doing it too. So, oh, spoiler alert.
Oh my God, you've ruined everything. I think that's about it. You know, I tried to give you your last moments. I talked for a while there on the post. I wanted to make sure. Randy, if this is like political advertisements, I want to give you your equal time. I don't want to bury you.
I don't
I wanna make
believe
sure
that, but
everything's okay.
go
No,
ahead.
that's true. That's weird. Randy was completely cut out of this week's episode after the
odd.
hello. That's so odd. But we'll wrap it up, and I'll say thank you as always for listening or watching. If you are listening or watching, please smash that like button on the old YouTubes. Leave us 5 stars and a positive review on your podcast provider of choice. You can find me on Mike Barcode, MikeBarcode, on Instagram, TikTok. We'll try to do the socials. I don't post like I used to. It's pretty much just clips from this, which probably just pisses people off. But still, find me out there. We'll try. But thank you for everything. And Randy, I will give you, as always, the final word.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye, everybody.